The thing about a roof in a storm is that it cannot wait. Everything else can wait. The gutters, the fence, the shutter banging loose on the south side, those are morning problems. A roof in a November storm is a tonight problem, and I knew it the moment I heard the sound from next door. Not the rain, the other sound. The low, structural groan of something giving way. I was already in my coat before I'd finished thinking about it. My name is Cal Merritt. I was 34, a general contractor, self-employed, which means I am the person people call when something is broken and the problem is not covered by a warranty or a YouTube tutorial. I have been fixing things since I was 12 years old, helping my father with weekend repairs on houses in our neighborhood, and somewhere in the 22 years since then it stopped being something I did and became something I was. I had been renting the house on Grover Street for a year and a half. Single-story bungalow, good bones, landlord who fixed things reluctantly and only under sustained pressure, which I had learned to apply. The house next door was a mirror image of mine, same floor plan, same era, same slow accumulation of deferred maintenance that comes from a house being owned instead of inhabited, if that distinction makes sense. The person who inhabited it was named Mara Solis. She had moved in 4 months before me. She was 32, a high school art teacher, and she lived in her house the way people live in places they've decided to stay. Not just occupying the rooms but adjusting to them, putting things on the walls, learning which window catches the morning light. I knew this because of the year and a half of proximity that comes from neighboring houses on a quiet street, and because I had been paying attention in the way that doesn't announce itself. She had dark eyes and a directness about her that could catch you off guard if you weren't prepared for it. She said what she meant, not bluntly, precisely. She was the kind of person who had clearly thought about what she was going to say before she said it, and the precision was what made it land. She laughed at things that deserved it, and didn't perform politeness about things that didn't. She grew tomatoes in the back in summer, badly, with what I eventually understood was optimistic persistence, the kind that doesn't scale back the ambition to match the results, but just keeps planting. She left her porch light on every night, which I noticed because my bedroom window faced her front porch, and for a year and a half it was the last thing I saw before I went to sleep. I liked her considerably more than I had told anyone, including myself. After my divorce, and I say divorce the way you say it, when it's been long enough that the word has lost its charge, which is to say it happened 3 years ago, and I am not still bleeding from it. I am just different because of it. I had not been particularly interested in proximity. Jana and I had been wrong for each other in ways that took 4 years to fully understand and another year after that to stop replaying in the quiet. We had not been cruel, we had just been incompatible at the level where it counts, and by the time we named it, we had both been tired for a long time. She had told me near the end that she felt like she lived next door to me instead of with me, that I was good with the practical things, the fixing, the showing up, the standing steady in the inconvenient moments, but that there was a door somewhere I kept closed and she had never learned where it was, or whether I even knew. I had thought about that for a long time. I think she was right. I think I had gotten so good at being reliable that I had confused reliability with presence. And they are not the same thing, and by the time I understood the difference, she had already made her decision. After that, I had gotten very good at a certain kind of solitude, not loneliness. I knew the difference, and this was not that. This was deliberate, measured. I was not waiting for anything. I was not guarding against anything. I was just a man who fixed things for a living and came home to a quiet house and cooked dinner with the radio on and went to bed looking at the porch light next door and told himself this was a reasonable life. It was a reasonable life. It just occasionally left something unaccounted for. That was where I was on a Tuesday night in November when I heard the sound. It had been raining since afternoon. Not the polite kind, the sustained kind, the kind that doesn't care about your plans, steady and indifferent, and getting worse by evening. I had spent the day on a job site in town and come home at 6 and changed out of wet clothes and was eating leftover soup at the kitchen table when the wind picked up to the kind of speed that starts testing things. I heard it at 8:15. The sound from next door was not loud. That was the thing about structural sounds. They didn't need to be loud to be serious. A low, hollow concussion, like something had shifted that was not supposed to shift, followed by the specific silence of something having given. I have been doing this long enough to know the sound of a roof taking on water through a breach. I put on my coat and my boots and went out into the rain. Her porch light was on. I knocked. She opened the door in a paint-stained sweatshirt, and the expression of someone who had already heard the sound and was hoping she'd imagined it. "I heard something," I said. "I heard it too." She looked at me, then at the rain behind me. "It came from the back." "Yeah," I said. "I'm going to look at the roof." She blinked. "Right now?" "Right now," I said. "If there's a breach and it rains all night, you'll have water in the ceiling by morning." She looked at me for a moment with the particular expression of someone recalibrating. Then she said, "I have a ladder. In the garage." She said it the way she said most things, simply, like the decision had already been made, and this was just the information that followed. "I've got mine," I said. "I got the ladder from my truck. I went up in the rain." I should explain what I found, because it matters to what came after. The back corner of her roof had a section of flashing, the metal strip that seals the edge where the roof meets the wall, that had pulled away from the fascia board. Probably worked loose over several seasons of freeze and thaw, the kind of thing that lets go incrementally until one good storm makes it final. The rain was going directly behind it and into the wall cavity. Not catastrophic, not yet. It would have been by morning. I had the right materials in my truck, which is the kind of thing that happens when you are a contractor and you keep your equipment as though the world will break on an inconvenient schedule, because it will, and it does. Roofing cement, self-sealing membrane, screws, sealant. I was up the ladder in 90 seconds. Working in rain on a pitched roof at night in November is not something I would recommend. It is cold and dark and the surface is slick, and you are aware at all times of the specific consequences of inattention. But I have done it before and the work does not care about the weather, and neither do I when the work needs doing. I sealed the flashing, re-nailed the fascia, ran a bead of sealant along the full seam, checked the surrounding shingles. 2 were close to giving, 1 more season at most. I dealt with them while I was up there, because that is how you fix things correctly. You don't just fix the thing that failed, you look at what was about to. By the time I came down the ladder, I was soaked through in the way that goes past discomfort into something almost like clarity. The rain had not let up. My hands had the specific numbness that comes from wet work in November wind. I was folding the ladder when her back door opened. She was standing in the doorway holding a mug in each hand, the kitchen light behind her, and she looked at me for a moment, the way you look at someone who has just done something you didn't ask for and weren't expecting, and can't figure out the correct response to. Then she said simply, "Come warm up, not thank you, that'll do for tonight." Not "I really appreciate it," just the direct, uncomplicated thing, "come warm up," like it was obvious, like it hadn't occurred to her to say anything else. I brought the ladder around to my truck. I came inside. Her kitchen was the kind of kitchen that tells you about a person. Not immaculate, lived in, which is different. There were student paintings on the refrigerator held with magnets, which I understood to be the art teacher version of case files. There was a pot of something on the stove that smelled like it had been going since mid-afternoon. Beans, something spiced, the smell of a person who had planned their evening before the storm interrupted it. The table had papers at one end, lesson plans marked up in red, and a cleared space at the other, and she set a mug down in the cleared space and pointed at the chair in the way that means sit down, not hover. I sat. The mug was coffee with something in it, not much, just enough to change the temperature of it. I held it with both hands. My hands were still not entirely mine. "How bad was it?" she said. She was leaning against the counter with her own mug, not sitting, the way of someone who stands when they want to see something clearly. "Not bad now," I said. "It would have been bad by morning." She nodded. Not dramatically, just taking it in. "What was it?" I told her about the flashing, the fascia board, the sealant. She listened the way she listened to everything. Fully, without the expression people wear when they're waiting for you to finish. When I got to the part about the re-nailing, she asked a question about whether the fascia was original or replaced, and whether that affected how I'd sealed it. It was a specific question. I looked at her. She caught that. "I teach high school art," she said, "not high school waiting for men to explain things." "Fair point," I said. "I grew up in a house that needed a lot of fixing," she said. "My dad was not a natural. I paid attention. To what went wrong. To what held," she said. "There's a difference." I sat with that for a moment. Something in my chest made a quiet adjustment. Not dramatic. The way a level finds its mark. She refilled my mug without asking. She sat down across from me with the ease of someone who has time for the conversation that's actually happening, not the one they'd planned, and we talked. About the houses on Grover Street. Theirs, mine, the particular personality of houses built in the same era by the same builder, the way they aged at the same pace, and surrendered the same things in the same order, as if they'd coordinated. About one of her students who had apparently developed a serious fixation on architectural drawing that she found more interesting than inconvenient. About a contractor I dealt with last spring who had filed permit applications in the wrong county for 3 months without mentioning it. "Did he ever explain himself?" she said. "He said he thought I knew," I said. She looked at me. "He thought you knew he was filing in the wrong county." "He had a whole theory about it," I said. "Very confident." She laughed. "The real version. The one that went to the shoulders." "Some people would rather construct a story where you're wrong than admit they are." "Most people," I said. "More than most," she said. She was easy to talk to in a way that costs something to admit, because it is not a quality you find easily, and it is not something you can decide to feel. She was interested in things, and she said what she thought, and she didn't require me to manage what I was saying. I kept forgetting to calibrate. I kept just talking, which I had not done in a while with anyone. At some point the rain let up. I only noticed when it stopped. Around 10 o'clock she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes," I said. She looked at her mug for a moment. Then, "Why did you go up there?" "Because the roof needed fixing," I said. "In the middle of the night," she said. "In a storm. For a neighbor you've said maybe 40 words to in a year and a half." 37, I said. "I've been keeping track." She looked at me. That stopped her. Then she half smiled, and it was not the polite version. "You've been counting." "No," I said. "I just said that." A pause. "It was more than 37, but not a lot more." "No," I said. "Not a lot more." She was quiet for a moment. Outside, the rain had become something lighter, the kind that doesn't insist on itself. The kitchen was warm and the coffee was gone and neither of us had stood up. "Why not more?" she asked. Not accusingly. Genuinely. I looked at my mug. "I'm not," I started, stopped. "I got used to a certain amount of space," I said. "After my marriage ended. It was easier then. I told myself it was simpler. To not." I stopped again, because I was not saying it right and I knew it. "To not start anything," she said. "Yes." She looked at me with the directness that I had watched from across the fence for a year and a half. "And tonight? Tonight a roof needed fixing," I said. "And then you opened the door and told me to come warm up." A pause. "And I decided I was tired of the certain amount of space." There it was. Not how I'd have said it if I'd planned to say it, but true. She was quiet for a long moment. The kitchen held its breath. "I've been counting too," she said finally. "The 40 words, the 37 or however many." She turned her mug in her hands. "I didn't know what you wanted." "Neither did I," I said. "Until tonight I wasn't sure I wanted anything." "And now?" I looked at her. The kitchen light, the student paintings on the refrigerator, her paint-stained sweatshirt, her eyes that were direct about everything. "And now I know what I want," I said. "I'm just not sure what to do about the fence." She looked at me for a second before she understood that I meant the actual fence, the one between our properties that listed slightly to the left and that we had both been pretending not to notice. "What about it?" she said. "It's in bad shape," I said. "I've been meaning to fix it. I kept not having a good reason to bring it up." She looked at me for another long moment. Then she said, "You can bring it up." "I'm bringing it up." "Good," she said, quietly, like a door opening. "I want to tell you the rest, because the rest matters." I did not stay that night. I went home across the wet grass at 10:15 and stood in my kitchen in dry clothes, with the particular feeling of someone who has been still for a long time and has finally moved. Not the dramatic version of that, the quiet one. The one that feels more like relief than anything else. Like a thing that has been under tension has finally been given some slack. She texted me at 11. Her number appeared in my phone for the first time, and the message said she'd gone up to check the ceiling in the back bedroom and found no water damage, and she thought I should know. I told her good. She said good night. I said good night. I did not sleep particularly well. Not badly, just with the particular alertness of someone whose mind is not ready to stop. I lay there and thought about what I'd said. I decided I was tired of the certain amount of space. I had not planned to say that. I had not known I was going to say it until I did. That is the thing about the truth when you've been carrying it quietly for a long time. It comes out in the wrong moment. Not because you chose the wrong moment, but because the right moment chose you. I thought about what she'd said. "I've been counting too." I thought about her saying she hadn't known what I wanted. I thought about the year and a half of 37 words plus some that I had been so careful about maintaining, and what exactly I had been protecting, and for whom. In the morning I was not sure whether I had been brave or just rain-soaked and unguarded. I decided it didn't matter. The thing had been said. The thing was true. Those two facts were the same size whether I'd said it with planning or without it. I fixed the fence the following Saturday. She brought coffee out at 9 in the morning, and we did not pretend we were just neighbors. She held boards while I nailed them, which she did with the competence of someone who paid attention to what held, and around noon we sat on her back porch in the November cold, because neither of us wanted to go inside yet, and she told me about a student who had asked her that week why people made art that nobody would ever see, and what she'd told him. "What did you tell him?" I said. "That making something true doesn't require an audience," she said. "It just requires that you make it." I looked at her. "That's about more than art," I said. "Most things about art are," she said. I went home that afternoon and thought about that for a long time. About things made true without an audience. About the year and a half I had spent 30 feet from her kitchen light, and the particular discipline it had taken to not walk toward it, and whether that discipline had been wisdom or just another word for the same fear I'd been carrying since my marriage ended. I thought it had probably been the second thing. That was 14 months ago. The fence is good now. Better than good, because I replaced 3 posts while I was at it and used pressure-treated lumber that will outlast both our leases and probably the houses themselves. So are the gutters on her south side, which I got to in the spring when the ice came off, and the porch step that had developed a soft spot she'd been stepping around for a year without mentioning it to me, which I found and fixed without asking because I had been paying attention. She made me a painting for my kitchen. A small one, the view from my back door looking toward her yard, painted from memory, which means she had been paying attention too. She presented it the way she presented most things, directly, without ceremony, as if giving someone something you made was just a fact, and not a thing that required framing. There is nothing unusual about giving someone something you made. I had just not had that in a long time, and I had forgotten what it felt like to be on the receiving end of someone's attention rendered into something permanent. She still stands when she wants to see something clearly. She still says exactly what she means in the most efficient possible words, which I understand now is not shortness. It is respect. She means enough by what she says that she doesn't pad it. I have spent 14 months learning to read that, and I think I'm getting better at it. Most evenings now I come home to 2 houses that are both mine in different ways. Sometimes I fix things for her. Sometimes she stands next to me while I do, and asks the questions that tell me she's been watching how things work her whole life. The student paintings migrate from her refrigerator to mine occasionally, which started as a joke and has become a thing we do. The kitchen light that I used to look at from across the fence is the kitchen light I sit next to now. I went up on the roof because the roof needed fixing. I have been fixing things my whole life, and I understand the ones that can wait and the ones that can't. What I understood that night, standing in the rain on a ladder in November, was that some things you fix and some things you let open, and they are different actions that sometimes look the same from the outside. She opened the door and told me to come warm up, like it was obvious. Like the alternative hadn't occurred to her. She was right. It should have been obvious a year ago. But I got there. What would you have done if you went out in a storm to fix your neighbor's roof, and she opened the door and made the next step feel like the simplest thing in the world? And have you ever realized you'd been calling the fear of something the wisdom of it? And then one night the difference finally showed? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.